Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I hope you're doing well. Today is August 11th, 2016. Can't believe summer's almost over, and it's a bright and very warm day here on the East Coast in the United States. And we're so grateful that you've joined us for today's webinar presented by Cosvox on how to set your nonprofit up for social media fundraising success. Many of you joined us earlier and shared what you hope to learn on today's webinar. And we hear your feedback. And the great thing is a lot of the questions that you guys have posed, everything from how do you use social media to effectively fundraise? How do you move from fan and follower to supporter? What platforms to use? What types of things to share? How to really use social media, even just to drive things, not just donations, but even volunteers and advocates and fundraisers. And so we're going to dive into all of that on today's webinar. So again, for those that just joined us, my name is Noah Barnett. I lead marketing here at Cosvox. Prior to joining Cosvox, I actually spent 6.5 years running growth and marketing at an international humanitarian nonprofit and was a Cosvox customer for nearly 5 years. Now I spend most of my days really leveraging my experience working in the nonprofit space to now investing that knowledge in kind of the content we create here at Cosvox. We write 2 or 3 blog posts each week. Many of you benefit from that. And it's just exciting to be able to work alongside people that are investing in changing our world and helping them really ensure the good they do is seen, shared, and supported. And so today we also have a special guest. Her name is Julia Campbell, and she's the founder and digital strategist at JC Social Marketing. Hi, Julia.
Oh, hi. Sorry, I unmuted myself. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's a little hot,
Okay.
so I stepped outside to walk my dog before the webinar, and I was a little
Yeah,
sweaty. So it's one
it's
of those
really hot.
extra hot days here on the East Coast.
Well, people might be wondering, why they should be listening to me. They know why they're listening to Cosvox. You guys are kind of the leader in the digital strategy sector for nonprofits. But for me, I want to let everyone on the webinar know that I've worked in the nonprofit sector for my entire career. I have been a development director and a marketing director. I started my business where I have worked for 7 years in order to help nonprofits really get the most out of what they're doing online. So their online marketing and fundraising campaigns. You can't know all the tools. You can't know all the tricks. You can't know all the ins and outs. You're busy saving the world and creating a better society for all of us. So I'm here to help you get the most out of what you're doing. I have run several successful social media fundraising and awareness campaigns for my nonprofit clients. I've worked with universities, but I've also worked with tiny nonprofits with a staff of one. One of my clients is one person, and she's very fantastic, doing
I think
great
we have a
work.
few people on the webinar that only have
Yeah,
one people
they're
from
one
the sounds of
person.
it. Yeah. And they said, how do you run organizations,
Perfect. I love it.
social media with only
I
one
love it.
person?
I love it. I've been there. I understand. I completely can relate to what you're going through. I have helped my clients raise thousands of dollars online using a combination of their website, their email, and their social media channels. So hopefully I will impart some tips and some nuggets of information that you can go forth and use today.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're excited to have you, Julia. And we'll be spending the first 25 or 30 minutes today diving into really just how social media has changed fundraising. Um, and then even talking about the steps that you can take to fundraise effectively on social. And then backing up a little bit and really saying, how do you actually measure that success? That's something we hear a lot about at Cosbox is like, hey, we're doing social media, we're sharing posts, we feel like we're doing okay, but we don't really know how effective we are doing on social media. And so we're going to dive into some techniques that you can do to actually know, like, are you being effective, and how do you really define that? Then at approximately 2:30 or so, we'll dive into a 15 minutes of live Q&A with Julie and myself. But don't wait till then to ask questions. You're more than welcome to submit questions in the questions pane throughout the webinar as you think about them. And we'll get to as many as we can during that Q&A period of time. And then after the webinar at around 2:45, if anyone's interested, we're really going to dive into kind of an overview of how you can use Cosvox to run social media fundraising campaigns. And if you're interested in that, you can stick around. It's a 15 or 20-minute demo with myself, and I'll kind of explain how some of the learnings we have in today's webinar, Cosvox can help solve for that. But that's completely optional, and that'll be around 2:45 Eastern time today. So throughout the webinar, if anything sticks out or you want to share with your community on Twitter, if you don't mind sharing that and tagging Cosvox and hashtag NP Learning, we'll be sharing some of that content throughout the day and throughout the week to come. If you share any of those nuggets that you hear, hopefully we have a few for you. So before we get started, we already know kind of what people want to learn today, but we'd really like to know who we're talking to. What role do you play in your organization? And so I would love to know, are you in the executive director or leadership role at your nonprofit or charity? Are you in fundraising or development, communications and marketing? Are you a board member? Are you other? And if you are other, I would love to know what other is. So share what your other is in the questions pane of GoToWebinar. And some people, when we did this webinar yesterday, for those that are in like all the roles, like the one person nonprofit, you can just choose whatever one best fits, whatever you feel like today. And what we see is, it looks like there's 40% of you are fundraising and development, 25% communications and marketing, and then 10 to 15% in leadership and 10 to 15% in other. That's kind of what we expected. And so we're excited because we've kind of built out the webinar specifically to talk to fundraising and marketing individuals and communication staff. But that's really applicable for those in leadership, or just for those that are in other positions throughout the organization. They can really understand how to carry this into their organization and effectively use social media to reach some of your fundraising goals. So before we dive into today's main content, I just wanted to kind of give an overview of, really what Cosvox is all about. And so, here at Cosvox, we're a simple yet powerful online and mobile fundraising platform. We allow you to easily launch crowdfunding and peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns for Giving Tuesday, for year-end, for your annual fund, for your capital campaigns, or even just an opportunity that you want to provide a new way for your social media followers and fans to engage with you by creating personal fundraising pages, hassle-free, and very flexible and customized to your brand. And what we see, and we're going to talk about it a lot in the presentation after today's webinar, is really what we've seen, and we're going to talk about it a little bit today as well, is that social media is continuing to prioritize people to people. Facebook just announced in June how they're going to prioritize in the newsfeed friends and family for people. And so brands and those that have kind of seen the evolution of this are going to continue to see less and less reach for their brand pages. And so the question always comes to us is, how do you then run, is social media worth it? And what we see is the most effective campaigns are the ones that really empower their supporters to share the story with their community, because then it's coming from their friends and family, and it's more likely to be seen, and you're more likely to reach new supporters. So now let's dive into today's presentation on how you can really set your organization up for social media success. The first thing is, the world we live in today has really fundamentally changed. How we communicate, how we buy, how we share, has all moved online. And we live in this connected, always on world. In the US alone, so this was a study specifically for the US, but it's pretty applicable across other countries like Canada and Australia, that 73% of adults go online daily and 21% are online almost constantly. I know I fall into that category of almost constantly. And it's something to be aware of. And today, 65% of online adults use social networking sites. We're going to talk about how important it is as a tool for you to be able to connect with your current supporters, but also reach new supporters with your story. And so it's really interesting to step back. And as I was, preparing this presentation, and Julie and I were talking about this, a lot has changed in 15 years. None of these things existed 15 years ago. And, I started fundraising right around a little less than 10 years ago. So, Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and LinkedIn have always been a part of the conversation on how you reach people. But for those that, might have been doing fundraising for 15 plus years, you remember a time when, social media wasn't a thing. It was still about connecting with people, but these tools just weren't out there. And so what we've seen is the fundamentals of fundraising is still the same, but the tools and the resources we have and the mediums that you use to connect with people, engage with people, and get people to share with others the work that they're so passionate about and why, and recruit supporters for you, has changed and moved online through various social channels. And the biggest thing we see is that, okay, well, social media isn't for me or for nonprofits, but more than half of social media users discover social initiatives via social media platforms. And that kind of makes sense. If you think about the last time you bought something or the last time you chose to go to a restaurant, usually it's because you either found out about that from someone else or you said, hey, does anyone know about this? And you got feedback from that. So why would that not be the case for social initiatives or charities or nonprofits and the work that many of you are doing? That is being discovered on social media. And another misconception about social media users or these online networks is that, well, you can't raise money from those people, or those people just, it's really hard to navigate that. But that's not the case. 64% of social media users surveyed gave $100 or more to nonprofits in the last year. And when you combine those two things, you have to see social media as a fundamental tool as you approach fundraising, especially digital fundraising in today's day and age in our connected world. So now the question always becomes is like, okay, I get it. Social media is here to stay. It's fundamentally changed how we connect, but how do you effectively fundraise on social media? And what we see is there's really 5 steps that you need to take to prepare yourself to effectively raise. We're not selling, mystery plans or the secret for success. There is no one size fits all way to fundraise effectively. But what we've laid out today, and we're going to walk through now, is really the 5 steps that we've seen nonprofits, charities, and other social good initiatives use to set themselves up for success. And so we're focusing much more today on the process that you can use to set yourself up for success, rather than the tricks and tools that you can use to get quick wins or raise money, because each of our audiences are different and we need to understand that. So step 1 that we see is taking actually a step back from your actual social media or your Facebook post or your Twitter feed or your Instagram photos, and really determine what your goals are. And so here at CosVox, we promote that you really need to set SMART goals. And this has been a concept around for a very, very long time. But what we mean by SMART goals is just something that's specific. And so there's just a clear understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. And then measurable means you actually can measure it. One of the reasons many of you may have joined today's webinar is you want to understand how you can measure success of your social media efforts. And one thing we've seen is if you don't set goals, there's no way you can measure success, because you're just measuring after the fact. If you don't know what you should be measuring against, then you're unable to do that. And so that's why step 1 is setting SMART goals: attainable, relevant, and time-based. And we see these goals take many shapes and forms. So here's an example of a SMART goal that your organization could have, is that you want to increase the number of shares we get on Facebook posts to average more than 3 by the end of the month. And so that's very clear and specific. It's time-based. It's relevant, because the more shares you get on Facebook, the more reach you have with new audiences, and the more engagement that your stories are going to have. And you can effectively measure this at the end of the month. Or, we want to increase the reach of our post by 30% by the end of the year. This is getting harder and harder to do, but it's still a goal, because then what you can do is you can work backwards and say, okay, what are the motivations that increase reach? Shares are important, likes are important, comments are important. Those are all the factors that go into reach, specifically on Facebook, but also across many of the other platforms. There's similar engagement metrics that impact reach. And so now you can start thinking through as a team, how do we actually increase reach? What are some of these things that we want to test so that we can continue to push towards our goal of increasing reach? And another thing we see a lot is that there's a separation between hard kind of fundraising donor financial goals and social media. The social media goals seem to be much more soft about, we want this many likes or we want to increase this. And those are very, very important. But I think the important thing to do, especially for your social media teams or you as an individual, is to say, how is this ultimately driving back to the thing that every person on this webinar is trying to do? Recruit new donors and raise more money online. And so these are just two examples that talk about how you want to measure that and set that goal for yourself so that you know that you're on social media to then drive back down to raising $5,000 through your campaign by year end or recruiting 50 new donors through social media. And if you set these goals ahead of time, then you can put in the metrics and kind of the mechanisms needed to be able to measure this. So now that you've set your goals clearly, the next thing you really want to do is understand who your ideal supporter personas are. And you might be asking yourself, what are you talking about? And really, it's simple. Supporter personas are just fictional, generalized representations of your ideal donors, supporters, or participants, or even volunteers or advocates, whatever you're trying to do and how it relates back to your goal. And the reason that's important is because then you can actually start to understand who you're actually going after, and then build your social media strategy and many other strategies, whether it's email or your website, or even just your messaging and fundraising appeals to match the needs and wants and desires and feelings that your supporter personas have. And so I've included 3 examples for one nonprofit that I worked for in the past that really kind of show you how this is slightly different than maybe some of you are used to when you think of demographics or target market. So they're similar, but they are still different. So let me introduce you to Megan. So Megan is, a compassionate, energetic, very busy individual, and she has a lot going on. She's trying to manage the household, the family, etc. And this was one of our target people that we were trying to reach out to, and engage in our cause. And so when we really understood that, we said, what makes Megan unique? What makes her different? How does she want to hear from us? Why doesn't she support our cause? What are different ways, in networks that she's on or that she looks to? How does she get recommendations to nonprofits or causes to engage her family in? And so we outline that here in this overview. But then by contrast, we had another persona that still fell in that same demographic age category, but just was at a different life stage and just cared fundamentally about different things. And were looking for different things from a nonprofit that they would want to engage in. And so, introduced you to Amy, who's, hyper-connected, hands-on creative thinker. And so how we engage with Amy would be fundamentally different from, say, Megan, where Megan might be more into Pinterest and visuals and emotional storytelling, where Amy's really looking like, how do I get my hands dirty? How do I really get involved? I want to be on the inside. I want to feel like I know what's going on, and I want to feel like an advocate and a part of the team. And then, basically, the stage before that was Caitlin. So Caitlin could turn into Megan or she could turn into Amy, but we really wanted to identify her at her stage as different, what she cared about, what she wanted to get involved in, and how we would engage her. And so we actually set different goals and different marketing initiatives for each of these personas that we had created. And we had a few more, but these were the ones that were the main focuses for our social media strategy. And we'll be sharing these slides and the recording of today's presentation with you tomorrow morning after the webinar. And so if you're interested in kind of digging into these further or using these as examples, you're more than welcome to do that when you receive the slides tomorrow morning after the webinar. So the other question is like, how do you actually go about establishing this? We showed you what ideal personas look like, but what are the questions that you can use to consider and develop these out? So, you really want to understand their background, their demographics, but some of the softer things, like how do they prefer to be communicated with? What's their tone, style, and voice preferred? What social media channels are they actually engaged in a regular basis? And a lot of this is public knowledge that you can dig into on some of the Millennial Development Impact reports. that we have featured on our website, but also other websites talk about how different groups of people engage differently in social channels. And I think the one that I found most useful that I never had thought about before going through this exercise with my team was, why would they support your cause, but why may they not support your cause? I think it's important to understand why people choose not to support your cause, and then how you can actually describe your cause to them specifically so that they connect with that. Your story is the same across the board, but how you communicate that story and your cause might be different based on the persona or based on the channel that you're communicating through. So now we're really going to dive into, how do you actually choose social channels? What do you actually share on social media? And then how do you measure that? And so I'm going to pass it back over to Julia, and she's really going to dive into this, the next meat of the presentation, about really how do you engage on social that then drives back to some of the fundraising goals that you have as an organization.
All right, great. Thanks, Noah. So we talked about choosing your goals so you know where you're going, you know what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Then we talked about who you need to talk to and who you need to target to accomplish that goal, which was what Noah just talked about with target personas. And now we will talk about the number one question that I receive: what social media channel should I be on? And the question is not necessarily very easily answered. I cannot tell you right now. I need to know your strategy and your purpose first. That is by far the most important thing. And then we go to tools and channels last. It's really just an avenue to convey your strategy and purpose. So the three questions that you want to ask when you're determining which channel to use are: your donors there? Or your target audience. I use donors because I do a lot. This is about social media fundraising, but the target audience, are they there? Can you do something different on this channel? Are you just going to be cutting and pasting and rehashing things that are on other channels? Also, you need to know a lot about that channel. So what works on Snapchat doesn't work on Instagram, for example, although they're getting more and more similar. But can you add unique value to this channel? Can you be entertaining? Can you add something different? And also, number three, very important: do you have the capacity? You have to learn the language and etiquette of the new channel. You have to consistently create content. You have to be there, be present, and respond and participate and measure and improve. If the answer is yes to all three, then I say jump right in. If the answer is no, then hold off and maybe use one or two others until maybe you have a little bit more capacity. So creating compelling and appropriate content, that's what we want to do. That's what we need to do. So much more difficult than we think. So what do I mean by appropriate? I don't mean appropriate in the sense that your parents would think it was appropriate, although that's important. But I mean, does it fit the language, culture, and etiquette of the nation, the channel that you are speaking to? So I love this 2010 social networking map that Noah found. We could, of course, add a lot more countries now and take out some countries. But if you look at it closely when you get your slides, you'll see some cute little Easter eggs. They're very cute things going on here. But it's so important to understand that you need to be looking at social media channels just like you look at a map when you're planning a trip. They all have their own language, culture, and the reason that people are using them. So the best content, though, there are some themes that run across all social media channels in terms of what works. So the best content is overall authentic, emotional, compelling. That means it makes you want to do something: click, share, like, tweet. Interesting, unique, timely, and relevant. Not a really small order. But that's what it takes to kind of cut across the clutter. So I love this example from the Fredericton SPCA. It's very timely. It's very cute. It's about cats. It relates to their mission, but it's something perfect to share on social media channels. It just fits in perfectly with what's already happening on Facebook.
And I think that point about, sorry to jump in, Julia, but
That's okay.
make sure you blend in with the culture. I think it's like if you went to the United States and then to France and then to Russia and said something in English, for example, in France and Russia, they may kind of understand or it may blend through, but it's it's not going to fully resonate. It's not going to be culturally sensitive. And that's the same way with things on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Pinterest, etc. And so that's why I love this example. So when Julia found this example and shared this over, I passed this around our entire office here at Cosvox
Mhm.
because it's hilarious, it's fitting, and it feels as though it's part of the type of content that you would see on Facebook. And some would
Mhm.
say, this is too silly for us. We don't, that's not in our thing. But I think the thing is that like when you consume things on Facebook, you want to laugh. You're going there to, spend time. And so by connecting and sharing something that's culturally, air quotes right now, you guys can't see me,
Mhm.
um, but relevant for that channel, you can
Mhm.
still, though, communicate your mission. And they do this wonderfully here in this post.
They do. The SPCA does a great job. This particular one. They share a lot of things from other pages, so they're not even creating this. They don't have a graphic designer. They're just sharing from another page and getting traction from it. So storytelling is the number one type of content that you need to be sharing on social media. Of social media users who do actually donate, over half say that compelling storytelling is what motivated them to actually, pull the trigger and make a donation. So very, very important. And I'll show you some examples. Boston Children's Hospital does such a great, great job in terms of knowing each channel and knowing what works on each channel. They always show a fantastic picture, usually of a child, sometimes of a family, sometimes even of a doctor or a nurse, and they put a little caption that fits perfectly into Facebook, and then learn more on their blog, and then on their blog is where they usually ask for the donation. So it's kind of a soft ask, but it's getting you involved. It looks like something you would see on Facebook. It is told in a very compelling and heartwarming way. Some other examples, Women for Women, they do a fantastic job with that on Instagram. Instagram is a great channel, not necessarily the best for direct fundraising because you cannot put links that are live, but it's fantastic for creating a sense of mission and for really showing people in the field what you're doing and giving people a behind the scenes look at the stories of the people that you're serving and what you're doing, which will then create the sense of trust and hopefully entice people to go to your website. So it's all part of your mission to be authentic and to tell your story and to really cultivate people to become lifelong donors. So the 10 types of posts that work the best for nonprofits are, I feel like there's a sweet spot where you would be mixing up all of these types of posts. Donation appeals, you can do donation appeals on social media, updates on your projects, congratulations if you reach a milestone, or congratulations to volunteers, thank yous, very important, newsworthy info, live videos are also hugely important. Statistics that make us think, alternative asks. So maybe you want to ask someone to share or upload a photo, or maybe you want them to start a fundraiser for you. Infographics, information on your events, and then asking your supporters to volunteer or to sign up. So a good mixture of those 10 should get you the results that you need. I wouldn't rely too heavily on any one of those 10.
And I think
It's
that's
much easier
where
said than done.
Yeah, no, and I think that's where, we've seen even here at Cosbox that a lot of nonprofits go, they kind of get stuck in
Mm-hmm.
on like one type where they're like, I'm just sharing a photo and a quote, a photo and a quote, a photo and
Mm-hmm.
a quote. And they're like, why am I not getting the results I want? Like I'm getting, someone even mentioned the questions pane. They're having huge engagement, they're growing their fan base, but like, how do they transition that now? And I think this is something that helps you better understand that you might have more of one of these than the other, but differentiating the types of posts you share on social is essential to navigating social media fundraising.
Absolutely. So some examples of fantastic visuals and graphics that you can use. All social media platforms are visual, rely heavily on visual, including Twitter. And I like to include Twitter in this, and I have two other examples on the next slide, where people don't usually think of Twitter as a visual platform like they do Instagram or Facebook, but visuals work incredibly well and they're effective. They catch your eye and they're helpful when you're using it to ask for something, ask people to click, ask people to tweet. It's very helpful to have a visual. It's pretty much mandatory at this point to have some kind of visual with your social media posts. Thankfully, there are some free and low cost graphic tools you can use. I don't have time to go through all of these today. Take a screenshot or look at your slides later. Canva is my #1 absolute favorite graphic design tool. Any graphics you ever see me create will be created with Canva. So that's just my kind of takeaway for that. You need to be creating graphics to accompany your stories. Video is the #1 most engaging type of content across social media, so incorporating some kind of short form video strategy is vital. Cape Ann Animal Aid, they had supporters spend a night in their kennel and upload videos of their experience with an ask to donate. And they are a tiny nonprofit, so it's how they use their volunteers, their online community, to raise money for them and to help spread the word for them.
And I think what's great about this is they're amateur done videos. You can
Absolutely.
see the iPhone like in the or I guess it's a
Yeah.
chair looking
I was
thing,
a
but
chair. You
like
could see someone. Well, they
it's like a
edited this
reflection or
one
something.
that they
Yeah.
featured on their page, but each person took their own video
Yeah, and
and shared it on
I
their
think that's
social
something
media.
that's changed too because there's more of an accepting kind of culture these days, especially with live video, that it's a little
Absolutely.
rough.
Absolutely. Video is still incredibly, incredibly powerful. This is Google. They did a study and they found that via YouTube, 57% of people who watch the video went on to make a donation. That's unbelievable. So we all need to be thinking in these micro visual content terms. Live video is also very, very powerful. Explore.org uses it really to raise awareness. But then what I've seen done in a lot of the live videos that I've watched on Facebook is that they use the live video to get a lot of viewers and to get people to share it and comment, and then they put their call to action afterwards in the caption or in the comment section. Get more involved, donate to help the kelp forest, sign up to stop the destruction of the kelp forest, that kind of thing. The public library, also the same thing. They share live video from a lot of their activism events and awareness events, and then they have a great call to action in the comments. You can stay updated, take action, that kind of thing. So video is great to drive engagement and get eyeballs and get reach, and then incorporating the call to action within it is very effective. So some video tools, free and low-cost video tools, Animoto, any video you've seen on social media has probably been created with one of these tools. There are just so many tools out there. I encourage you to experiment. So if you're doing all of these steps, step by step by step, in conjunction with each other very strategically, that is how you're going to turn these likes, fans, and followers into supporters. The only way to get people to take an action, and this is what Chelsea Clinton said when I saw her speak, and I will never forget it, is get them passionately inspired or pissed off. That's how you get people to donate. If they're apathetic, they're ignoring your content, they're not going to make a donation. So we'll go pretty fast through the summary, and then we're going to get to measuring ROI. So you want to set your SMART goal, know where you're going and what you want to accomplish. Then know your ideal supporter persona, know who you need to target in order to reach your goal. Then, what channels do you need to use to reach your target to accomplish your goal? Then what kind of content do you need to create on that channel that is appropriate for that channel in order to reach your ideal supporter? If you are doing all of these 4 steps, then you will slowly but surely be turning these likes, fans, and followers into supporters. Creating content that is appropriate for the channel, appropriate for the audience is the most important thing, and getting people inspired and pissed off. So now you've been doing social media fundraising. We're going to talk a little bit about metrics to look at some things that you can put in a spreadsheet. There are millions of metrics to consider. The top 6 that I find are easy to measure, and they really will help you take the temperature of your social media efforts. Number of fans and followers cannot be the only thing you measure, but definitely important. Engagement, if you have 10,000 fans, but only 2 like each of your posts, then you want to think about how you can increase that engagement, getting people talking, liking, sharing, and commenting. Sharing retweeting, hugely important. Sentiment is the overall sentiment on your posts, good or bad. What are people saying? What are they thinking? Are you changing attitudes? Are you getting people to think of things in a different way? Are you eliciting questions and comments like, oh, wow, I never knew that. I never thought of that. And also measuring interest in your website, measuring referral traffic to your website from social media is very important to measure. So does social media really equal donations? These are equations that you need to determine for your organization. You need to know how many people, a certain number of people have visited your website, but only 4 made donations. How can you improve that? How many visits to your online donation page do you need to result in a donation? So you need to be looking at your website traffic, your online donation page traffic to determine this. What is a website visitor really worth? It's hard. I can't tell you what a website visitor is really worth to you. These are all things you need to be figuring out and determining. If there are no benchmarks, really starting from scratch and figuring out how much a website visitor is worth, how much a referral is worth. Do visitors from Facebook tend to result in a donation? Do more visitors from Twitter tend to result in a donation? Maybe you should spend more time on Twitter. So know exactly where your traffic is coming from and what they're doing when they get to your website. So Noah's going to go over some free resources, and then I know we went a little bit long, but we're going to do Q&A after that.
Thanks, Julia. And I think, again, those last few points are really, really important because how you measure success is going to almost go back to step one. Like, what are your goals with social media? Like, what defines success for you? And then mapping out how you are going to leverage social media to get to those goals is where then the rest of the steps come into play. And then you can look back and measure how successful you were. And you might realize some of those goals were actually unattainable or not realistic, and then you can revise. But having that process and kind of doing that on a regular basis, whether it's quarterly or whether it's maybe even monthly for you, will help you better understand what does social media actually mean for us. Because sometimes you can get caught up with, oh, I'm getting likes and shares and whatnot, but that's not really doing anything for your
Yeah,
organization when
people
you really
might
get down
not
to
actually be
goals.
going to the website. It might not be resulting in conversions. And that's, what's important at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I know we went through this very quickly, and a lot of people might be thinking, man, like this was a lot of new content. And so what we did was we have a social media guide that we put together that we'll be emailing everyone tomorrow, along with the recording and slides, so that you can review it again, over again, to kind of pull out the key points that are most relevant for your organization, or even share with your team, or if you're a leader, passing it down to your fundraising or marketing staff. That might be helpful. And so we put together that social media guide. And then also, we always like to offer that, you can launch your next fundraising campaign for free with us here at Cosvox, and you can learn more all about that at cosvox.com. And if you're really interested in taking advantage of that, stick around after Q&A, and I'll kind of dive into how you can leverage our platform to do social fundraising well. There's a few other resources that we'll send to you, including an article that Julia wrote on our blog that really dives in further on how you can measure social media fundraising success and ROI. And it's a great post, and I would highly recommend you guys read that when I send that out to you tomorrow morning. So many of you have already started asking questions, and I know we ran over just a little bit, but there was so much important content, and we wanted to make sure we get to it. So we're going to probably spend the next 10 to 15 minutes on Q&A and kind of dive into as many questions as we can. So to go ahead and get started, because many of you have already shared, if you have another question, you can share in the questions pane. But a lot of people are asking for really like nuts and bolts, like how frequently should we actually post on Facebook or post on social media? Any response to that?
Okay, I know everyone wants the one size fits all answer. So I think for Facebook, I personally would not post less than once per day. There are a million moving parts on Facebook, and recent announcements have suggested that they're going to be prioritizing friends and family members and actual people over pages. They always have done that, but they've made an official announcement that they're going to be now doing that because you have to think about it from a user perspective. I don't go on Facebook to be sold to. I mean, me personally, I go on Facebook to learn about nonprofits, but a lot of people go on Facebook to see what's going on with their friends and family, and that's what they want to see, and they view everything else kind of as an interruption. So really the only way, it's not about the amount of posting, it's about the quality of posting and posting when you have something interesting and relevant and timely and unique. And I think a very good example of this is the St. Baldrick's Foundation. And I wrote a case study of how they use Facebook to fundraise. And they are so strategic in their posting and they have such high quality posts, but they don't post very frequently because they don't want to overwhelm their people. On the other hand, I don't think nonprofits are posting enough. And I did just write a blog post about this that said nonprofits, you're not posting enough because you have to understand how few of your fans actually are seeing each post. So if you're posting something at 10 a.m., anyone that goes online at 5 p.m. is not going to see it unless you're promoting it. So taking all that into account, I mean, you'll be able to see that even if you post twice a day on Facebook, I guarantee you people will not complain and say you're posting too much. But it's all about the quality and not the quantity on Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that plays into another question that people are asking is, okay, we understand that the brand pages like aren't getting as much reach. So how does,
Right.
and you pointed out that's all the examples that we shared were of nonprofits talking about themselves or sharing their own content. And the question came up was, how do personal posts really play into a nonprofit strategy? And I know, for for us, when I was working in the nonprofit sector and really kind of advising some of the social media strategy we had or helping the team that was working on that, it was really about how to actually get people to share. And so it's
Mm.
harder to get people to share the moment you want people to share. And so our
Mm-hmm.
tactic was is that we wanted to build up of a community of people that we knew were active on social media. And so we actually did that
Yes.
through emailing out saying, we have this advocacy network that is for individuals that are, passionate about our cause, really into using their
I love
networks to
that.
share, and want to get
Yes.
insider information on how they can help further our organization's story and messaging and reach new people. And so we had
Yeah, it has to
about 80 or
be
so people
pressing,
sign up
thematic.
over 12 months, and we're able to continually go back to those people, not through social media, but through email and other means of communication, and ask them to share various types of content. So we'd provide them content and they would share it with their audience. And then we actually had a secret Facebook group that kept people connected. And at a certain point, our team actually didn't do most of the engagement. Most of the engagement came from kind of the power advocates that started talking amongst each other and coming up with interesting ways on how they could together further promote our organization's mission because they were so passionate about it and we're excited to
Hmm.
share the story. Have you seen
Absolutely.
anything else that works well for getting individuals to share, Julia?
Yes. So the Massachusetts Conference for Women does this incredibly well. They recruit social media ambassadors. You need to sign up. It's pretty exclusive. Of course, they do have a very good incentive. If you get chosen, you get to go to the conference for free. So they are a nonprofit, but they do have that great incentive. But they send out emails every week and they give you the tweet. They write the tweet for you. They write the Facebook post for you. They send you the graphic to post on Instagram. They tag all of the relevant speakers and they use the hashtags. So basically, I sit down at my computer for 10 minutes on Monday and I schedule a bunch of tweets. I schedule some Facebook posts. I look at their graphics and it's so easy to do. And they don't have a huge marketing department. They have one person, I think, full time working marketing for their whole conference. So to them, word of mouth is so vital and so important. And I always use that example and suggest that to a lot of my clients, especially smaller clients, to be really systematic in getting people to share. You can't just say, here, like, please go to our Facebook page and share something. No, no one has the time. People will forget. If you send an email or if you talk to them at a board meeting or if you are very, very intentional in what you're asking. And if you make it as easy as possible, then people will share. But if it's vague in any way, then people will ignore it. And not in a bad way, just because they're busy and they're being asked to do 10 other things probably at the same moment. So just being as specific and intentional as possible.
And there was another question that related to that that I wanted to come on was, how do you recruit people to be a part of your peer-to-peer fundraising campaign or crowdfunding campaign? And I think it goes back to the same way. Like what we see here at Cosbox, organizations that successfully run campaigns started early in recruiting, what we call kind of an internal tribe that are already being exposed to the campaign materials and really part of the planning process before you roll that out to the public. And so
Mm-hmm.
tapping your key donors, one organization, the only real supporters they had were their board members, but they were able to say like, hey, board members, like here's a practical way for you guys to get involved. You all work for companies or you all have influence in our community in some way or another, and you care passionately about our cause. So let's make that easy for you by, using peer-to-peer fundraising to kind of empower them to easily
Mm-hmm.
share. And that nonprofit actually set up the individual pages for their board members and gave them the
Wow.
keys basically to now add their personal story and then share that with their friends and family. And it's more work on your
Mm-hmm.
part, but by, like you said, by preparing and almost thinking for your advocates in some ways on what they would
Mm-hmm.
need to actually take action, saying, would you share this? Or saying, hey, would you share this? Here's a sample of what you could share, but feel free to edit it and
Mm-hmm.
make it your own. And by the way, I attached 3 photos that you can use to share throughout the
Yep.
campaign as you see fit. By putting that stuff together and thinking ahead, like you can do that once and then send that out to your 5 advocates or your 100 advocates. And so
Absolutely.
the impact of that investment of your time actually has scale. But you're also making it easier for people to say yes. So I always talk about is that you want to
Yes.
help people say yes. Um, and
Get
these are your
people to
supporters.
yes.
Yeah, these are your people that have already raised their hand, given of their own financial resources to say they care about your cause. So it shouldn't feel like you're asking them to do something they don't want to when you ask them to share or to join your peer-to-peer fundraising campaign or your one-day crowdfunding campaign. You really, though, just need to make it as easy as possible for them to be a part of that. And one of the other
Absolutely.
questions was we didn't really talk about LinkedIn. And so the question
Oh
was, how
yeah.
might a LinkedIn company page, or even just, Kristen mentioned LinkedIn company page specifically, but I think LinkedIn is probably one of the most underutilized resources for a nonprofit, and not only from the company
Mm-hmm.
page perspective, but even from like development staff that are on the call today. It's a great way to
Yep.
connect and network, and just like you would in a business context, but you can leverage it for your own benefit to network and to keep updated, and even share stories with the people in your network on LinkedIn as a personal um, from your nonprofit. Have you seen any other
Right.
tactics work well for company pages or even just LinkedIn personal pages?
Blogging on LinkedIn has been very effective for me personally. So it's a great way to get more readers on your content and also drive people to your website. So anyone can blog on LinkedIn. So if you don't have a blog for your nonprofit, you might want to think about LinkedIn publishing, but also Medium, but that's another whole topic. I
Yeah.
think that LinkedIn is best for connecting with people, and really getting a feel for their. You can put your volunteer causes on there and organizations that you're interested in. So you can do a lot of donor prospect research and board research on there. But I haven't found LinkedIn company pages to be quite as powerful as LinkedIn groups. LinkedIn groups, when managed well, can be very powerful. It's a group of people connecting around a cause, something they're passionate about, something they're interested in, and sharing resources and tips and help with each other. And plugging into that and those kinds of networks on LinkedIn, I think, is the best way to use it. But look at the blogging platform on LinkedIn. Even if you have to cut and paste your nonprofit blog on there, just definitely use it. I've seen way higher reach on there than for my blog than any other social network.
Yeah, and I think the last question I really wanted to dive into, because a few people have already asked this, was I'm a small nonprofit. We have a small staff. How do you even get started? Like, simple, practical first steps to get into social media for that small nonprofit.
Simple steps. Get your website in order first because I'm willing to bet your website can use some improvement. So, do you have stories on your website? Do you have visuals on your website? Do you have a video? Do you have the capacity to donate online? And I don't mean PayPal. Do you have some kind of software like CauseVox set up on your website where people can easily make a donation? So people want to jump into social media without having their website infrastructure in place. And that's very, very important because how are you going to drive people to your website from Facebook if it doesn't look great, if it's not doesn't have a lot of visuals and stories. So making sure that you have the ability to collect great stories and figuring out if you have confidentiality issues, and I know the majority of us do, figuring out creative ways to get around that. I mean, there's just no exception to the rule now. You need photos and videos and stories of the people you help, especially for the younger generation. They want to see that. They want to see the impact. They want to be in the moment. They want to be um, in the, kind of in the trenches. So doing a lot of brainstorming around how are we going to collect these stories, where are we going to get them, where are we going to get these visuals, and then collecting these assets and then thinking about maybe which channels could be the most manageable. If you're not on any channel, then Facebook is the obvious choice, but maybe Instagram would be a great choice. I just can't tell you which channels without knowing those three questions that we covered when choosing a social channel. But it's very important, like if your board is telling you we have to be on Pinterest, we have to be on social media, that you kind of say, okay, well, do we have the capacity to collect stories, write stories, get visuals? Um, let's do it right from the beginning. Let's set ourselves up for success by collecting all of these materials first, and then kind of jumping into the pool.
Yeah, and I think Hannah just asked a question that kind of relates back to this. Is she was just saying, like, I'm basically responsible for everything: website, e-blast, social media. How much time
Right.
should I devote? How do I save time? And I think Hannah, what Julia was saying just now about really doing an audit of like where you are and what you can realistically handle. Because if you're just doing
Yes.
everything and sending emails and doing social media and always looking for the most efficient way to do all of that, at the end of the day, you're focused more on checking boxes and not
Yes.
on building authentic relationships. And I think social media is a way for you to build an authentic community that supports your cause, advocates for your cause, and is willing to share that with their friends and family. Same with eBlast,
Yes.
same with your website. And so um, hopefully this isn't bad news, Hannah, but I would honestly just take
I
some
know.
time to really do an audit of like where you're at, what actually works, what are your goals? Like, how are you being measured? What are you looking to accomplish? Who are your
Right.
supporters? And then start talking about, where you should even be, what you should be sharing. And then by the time you get through all of that, I would confidently say that it'll clarify a little bit more on how you can use your time most efficiently. It just might mean you have to stop doing something, and that's always hard for nonprofits. But I
Yes.
know we're over time, so I wanted to just go ahead and wrap up. And
Hmm.
Julia, thank you for your time, and thank you just
Thank you.
for contributing not only to the webinar, but also some of the resources that we put together. And so we're grateful for that. Thank you to everyone that was on today. We'll be sending out the recording and the slides and the resources tomorrow morning. And so you can look for that in your inbox. It'll have a little rocket ship emoji. So you'll know that that's the email from me about this webinar. For those that want to stick around, I'm going to dive in now to the product demo on how you really can leverage Cosvox to manage some of your social media fundraising, and how we've really built our fundraising platform in a way that is really designed to help you be successful in today's connected world. And so for those that want to stick around, it'll probably be 10 or 15 minutes. I'm just going to dive into some of the examples on how you can use CosVox to power some of your social fundraising campaigns, and how we might be able to help you kind of accomplish social media community building alongside fundraising. So I appreciate everyone who's sticking around. We're going to go ahead and dive into the product demo. And I know there was a few questions that came through that we didn't get to. If you have any specific questions, you can reach out to me at noah@cosvox.com, and I would be happy to go over those directly with you following today's webinar. So let me just go ahead and set a few things up here, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So I'm here on CosVox's homepage. I just wanted to kind of show you some of the features of CosVox. We're an online fundraising platform for nonprofits and social good. We have a bunch of featured campaigns here that you can dive into that might be relevant to your cause, and can kind of see how others are using our platform to successfully fundraise online and through social media. We try to make things as easy as possible, like I said, by making it hassle-free, flexible funding. There's no annual contracts, nothing along those lines. All you have to do is sign up here, and you can dive in and explore the platform for free after today's call. So what I wanted to do is show you a few examples of actual fundraising campaigns that are currently going on CosVox's platform. So this is an organization that actually just wrapped up their campaign just a few days ago. And so you can see how they were able to raise $14,000 using CosVox as kind of their home base. But they were able to customize it and make it feel as though it was their campaign and personalized to them. And so you can see here, one of the key things we see for social fundraising campaigns is having specific goals is really important, because it allows you to leverage your community that you've built over time on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram to really rally around a specific goal and impact that goal would actually have. And so CosVox allows you to set that up, and you can set up a time frame as well, like this organization did. But then the great thing about CosVox's platform as well is it lets you feature visuals and video. And so one thing that Julia mentioned is social media is really about visuals and videos, especially in today's kind of landscape, and how social media platforms are choosing how they prioritize content. And so we make sure that that's front and center as well, and you can upload things very easily into the platform. The other thing we want to make sure you have is ability for someone to easily give. And one of the things we see about online fundraising, especially through social media, is social media usage is like 80 or 90% on mobile devices. And so if someone comes to your website and it's not mobile friendly, that causes a lot of problems, and also prevents them or provides a lot of friction for them to be able to contribute to your cause. And so we made sure that everything that you do on CosVox is mobile friendly and provides a seamless experience for your users to be able to donate and process their donation on mobile devices. And it's actually optimized for mobile out of the box, and everything is taken care of for you. It's also make sure that it's secure. So you'll see up in the top left-hand corner, all of our websites' donation processing is secure, so that you can give supporters the confidence to be able to donate to you. The other great thing is what we see is really effective, and we allow you to do, is to be able to designate the impact that specific donations will have that you're providing for, that a donor is providing to your organization. And so, for example, here, they said $25 makes a difference. $50 covers the cost of one roof farm bed for an entire season. And so, you rallied around this organization's cause, and they wanted to provide very applicable ways so that you could see the difference you could have at the different donation levels. And so you're able to set these up and customize them however you see fit, and make them relevant to your cause and your organization's story. The other thing that we allow you to do is to tell your story in your own words and be able to describe it, and then talk about the impact that that would have. And so you can see how this organization did that here and was able to raise more than $12,000 in 21 days. The other great thing that we provide is we believe that you should always give people the opportunity to donate or join your campaign as they're browsing your website. And so you'll see there's a persistent, which is basically just means the navigation up here always shows the donate and join and share buttons, so that as someone's browsing your campaign, when they're ready to take action, those action buttons are presented. And so they're able to donate from here, or join the campaign, or share it on their favorite social media channel, or through email. And we actually see email as one of the most effective ways that people can share your campaigns. And a lot of people are focused so much about sharing their content on their websites through email or through Twitter that they are forgetting that email is still a powerful way for me as a supporter to tell my friends and family about your cause. And so you can see here we offer a variety of ways that people can share your campaign. And we show you, all the participants that have joined, and then all the donations that have contributed to this campaign. The other feature we see is really the most powerful way to fundraise on social media is making the campaign less about you telling people why they should donate to the campaign, and you inspiring and empowering your key supporters. Like in this case, Misha Boyle was able to share her passion for Habitat for Humanity in Pensacola in a campaign, and was able to raise $1,200, which was double her goal. And you can see the campaign didn't just have her; they had over 59 people come together and support the cause personally and build out their own pages. And so we can look at Jessica, who built out her page. She had her custom page, she had her goal, she had 5 donors, and you can donate to her campaign and see her personal appeal that she wrote. And Jessica was able to set up this website for herself within just 3 easy steps. And so if we go back to the main page for Women Build, you can see how they have a create your Women Build page. And so if you click on that, people are able to sign up very easily, and in 3 easy steps have their own personalized fundraising page to promote your cause. So the other great thing we see that's really impactful on social media fundraising campaigns specifically, or crowdfunding campaigns, one-day campaigns, even specifically for year end or Giving Tuesday, which is coming up very soon, is the ability to provide not only an appeal. So this is James Flanagan, and he provided appeal where he, wanted to do an activity that would actually raise money to prevent greyhounds from being raced. And so it's an organization that promotes that. And so he wrote his personal appeal, but that it didn't stop there. One of the great things about our platform, which is a new addition that we saw becoming more and more important, was the ability for supporters to update their donors and to update people on where their campaign is at. And so we added the ability for James to be able to write his own blog posts to be able to update his campaign followers about what's going on. And again, this provided another unique piece of content that he was able to share with his community online, and was able to ask other people to share and get involved. And so you can see he did a video here, he shared some photos, and he has over 10 updates that he put together for his campaign throughout, to keep that momentum up and to show people the impact that they were having as he traveled and did an activity on behalf of this organization. And again, this organization not only just had James, but they had a group of other people that joined their campaign as well. And you can see they were able to raise almost $10,000 so far for their campaign, and they're still fundraising today. And you can see they have many other people that are doing exactly what James is doing, sharing their cause and getting behind it in a personal and effective way. And again, just to reiterate, like Facebook has said that they're going to start prioritizing individual pages, and we just see more and more that inspiring individuals to get involved and then empowering them to really do the fundraising on your behalf. And fundraisers up until this point have been so used to fundraising themselves and being in that grind and managing just unrealistic workloads that things like this seem a little different. But really, what you're doing is you're just giving your supporters that are donating to you another way that they can support the cause. People have limited financial resources, but they don't want to necessarily stop there. And we see that especially not only just with the millennial generation, but also with baby boomers. We see them, kind of moving on into, later in life and looking for ways to not only give financially, but to build out a legacy and to leverage their network and their community in interesting and new ways. And that's another way that you can leverage peer-to-peer fundraising. So peer-to-peer fundraising is not just for millennials. That's a huge misconception. And I think a lot of nonprofits that kind of box peer-to-peer fundraising or social media fundraising, that's just a millennial thing. We're targeting bigger donors that can give us more money. I think they're just missing out. So when I was working at a nonprofit, and I can pull that up now, we just saw all sorts of individuals come together to rally around one of the causes that we were supporting, which was to help rescue babies in Uganda, Haiti, and Guatemala. And so, we raised a very significant amount of money all through the support and help of various participants. And so one specifically was this UEC United Electronics. And then, so this one here, and then even this Miss Morel, who were all able to raise more than $5,000 just by tapping into their networks. And all of these individuals are much more later and in a later stage in life, and not just millennials. There was a lot of millennials that could rally around things too, like this individual got his family involved, and they did a holiday fundraising campaign to raise over $5,000 to rescue babies. Michelle Alt rallied her community of women to raise more than $3,900 for babies. And then even Molly was, just a college student that was able to raise $4,800 on her own for the cause. And so it's incredible to see the impact that people have when you just inspire them and then empower them to rally around your cause on your behalf. So the next thing I want to do is take you inside the backside. So it's great to see these campaigns, and some of you may be thinking, yeah, well, that's not just me. Like, how hard is this to really manage? So I wanted to kind of take you into a campaign that I'm on the board of the organization, and we were able to set up a campaign for them. They had never done, an online fundraising campaign, and really wanted to empower us as board members to get involved. And so I recommended using CauseVox because it was free to get started. You can raise up to $5,000 without any monthly fees. And it's all set up to be mobile friendly, and you can customize it to your specific organization's URL even, and branding and messaging. And so this is the backend. When you log into your account, you'll see this kind of dashboard that allows you to manage all your campaign sites. So one thing that we provide all of our customers is the ability to create multiple different campaigns. So you don't just come in and create one campaign. You can actually create different campaigns for different reasons throughout the year. So if you run an annual campaign, you can have a page for that. If you run a year-end fundraising campaign, you can have a campaign for that. If you run a Giving Tuesday campaign, you can create that. And it only takes just a few minutes to set up a new campaign page. So we're going to dive into this campaigns backend, so I can just show you how easy it is to customize. And so this is what their page looks like on the front. So you can see they used my.riverviews.net. It's an arts organization here in the city I live, and we're able to customize this to their organization's branding and messaging and even colors. And so when you come back over here, which is where we're at now inside the platform, I'll show you how easily they were able to design their site. And so our site designer is really intuitive and easy to use. You can click and change logos, change things just by uploading. You can click here and just add the URL of your video in here, and the video will populate. You can change the colors on your page by just coming over here and changing the colors. Um, you can change button colors. You can do all sorts of things, even type in the color code that is unique to your brand. You can change the messaging that your supporters see when they come to your website or your campaign site, how all of this works, and you can kind of organize that and then easily save all of those changes. And then that goes live on your site instantly. And so the great thing about this, and we see a lot of fundraising and development professionals share with us, is that they love this because it doesn't require them to work with IT or a designer or a developer. They can just launch fundraising sites when they need them and when their supporters want to get involved, and they can manage all of that without getting a developer resource or an IT resource involved, especially for organizations that are only have 1 or 2 or 3 people. So now we'll go back to the dashboard. So I can show you a few other great features of the campaign dashboard. And so you'll see there's over here, you can see the dashboard for the campaign. And so you can search for different campaign periods of time and see donation graphs, recent activity with your donors, what your fundraising goal is, how much you've raised online, how much you've raised offline, and then just the visitors and all different types of metrics here that you can use as benchmarks as you run your campaign. The other thing you can come in here is see all your fundraisers. You can search for them, you can manage them, you can help them set their campaigns up, and that's all really easily shown here. And you can see who's advocating for your cause and reach out to them and thank them for being involved. The other great feature is you can create teams. We didn't use teams for this campaign, but it's a great option for if you have different types of groups of people that want to fundraise together. So each of the individuals have their own pages, but they can group together as a team and set team fundraising goals. So it's great for kind of a competitive landscape, or even what I've seen is many people use this as a company engagement tactic where they'll create teams for various companies that support them in the community, and then have each of their employees raise money that then shows which companies are raising different things. It also works for associations where there's a bunch of different chapters, or YMCAs where there's a bunch of different branches. You can actually manage all of that inside CauseVox, and that's all included with no monthly fee up until $5,000 raised. And the only fee you pay is a small percentage fee on any donations you raise. The other great thing here is that the system manages all your receipting. And so you can customize your receipt that goes out to your supporters so you don't have to manage that on the back end. And you can see all the individual donations and how they came in various different ways. You can add manual donations. So if someone donates offline and they want it to be reflected on their campaign, you can add that offline donation, and there's no charge to do that, and we don't take any percentage from that. You're just able to do that. And you can see how we took advantage of that here in this campaign. The other great thing too is we allow your donors to set themselves up as recurring donors. So it's great for year-round fundraising campaigns where you want to invite people to not only support you one time, but to give on a monthly basis or an annual basis to your cause. And you can manage all of that inside of this campaign. And so, if we go back over here, you can kind of see what the public-facing page looks like. We include sharing options. We include everything here. Participants can sign up. You can see my page right here where I wrote an appeal of why I support this organization and shared my story, my personal story for the organization. Was able to share this, as you can see, as my.riverviews.net/Noah. So when my friends and family and community come to see my page, they're actually coming specifically to a page. They see my picture, they see my support for this organization, they can learn more on their own. It works really well for online fundraising campaigns, and then specifically ones that involve social media, because it gives you another way for you to invite your social media followers to get involved. That doesn't have to be just giving a donation. So that wraps up our presentation for today. I'm sticking around just for a few minutes to answer questions if anyone has any about the specific demo. But again, like I said, we're going to be sending out the recording and the resources and the slides tomorrow morning, and you'll get all of that, including a copy. Included on the recording will be an overview of the demo we just shared. So it looks like Priska, you had a question about, is it possible to use Cosvox outside the US? Yeah, it definitely is. So the only requirement we have is that you have a PayPal or Stripe account. And so organizations are allowed to set those up even outside the US and then set the currency to the currency that they want to raise money in inside the platform. So it looks like that's all the questions we have. So grateful for your time again. If you have any other questions, you can email me at noah@cosvox.com. Thank you guys so much for attending and spending so much time with us this afternoon. You guys have a great day.